Lady Edelgard. Lady Edelgard.
Until today, I thought it would fall to me to command and guide our ranks all by myself. But with you leading us, I've gotten to experience what it's like to fight alongside everyone. And I've realized how happy it makes me, fighting under your command. The Emperor doesn't take orders from anyone. It's their duty to stand alone and lead the entire Empire. But maybe it's better to have someone to rely on, so that you can support and guide each other through the darkness.
To put it lightly, Edelgard is the most controversial character from Three Houses, which is most likely due to her role as a tragic villain within the context of the overarching story. Edelgard is a tragic villain in that she doesn't intend to do evil, but her morally ambiguous revolution positions her to fill the role of a villain within the narrative. Within all possible routes in the game, with the exception of the Black Eagle's route, Edelgard is cold and uncaring in her conquest of Fodlan, and ends up creating a great deal of strife and misery that could have been avoided, due to her absolutist and totalitarian nature. It's through the Black Eagle's route that Edelgard develops into a more empathetic and understanding ruler, that is more fit to create the noble world that she envisions. But even in her best case scenario, her nature remains ambiguous. During the Academy phase of the game, Edelgard is shown to be someone who is, in her words,
a bit distant, arrogant even. But there's little to be done. One day, I must rise to become Adrestia's next emperor.
Edelgard is so fixated on her goals that she doesn't reflect on her own shortcomings so that she can better rule. It's apparent in her C&B supports with her fellow classmates that she can't get past her own arrogance and controlling personality to have good relationships with her peers. Her B support with her most trusted ally, Hubert, shows her controlling personality when she takes issue with him withholding certain secrets from her. In her early supports with Ferdinand, Edelgard doesn't consider him to be a worthy contender with her at all, and her arrogance keeps her from taking his ideas of the world seriously. In her C and B supports with Caspar, Edelgard tries to understand Caspar by viewing him as a victim of the noble hierarchy, but she doesn't understand that he doesn't care about any institutional disadvantages, and is just happy to succeed in any system he finds himself in. Edelgard also initially criticizes Linhardt for being too lazy, and is too arrogant to realize that the problem she's facing in asking more of Linhardt isn't his laziness, but her request of him. And, in her C support with Bernadetta, Edelgard becomes frustrated with her because she doesn't initially take the time to be more patient with Bernadetta's more neurotic personality. Even though I've listed off a series of Edelgard's negative traits by showing her supports with her classmates, there are positive traits to Edelgard as shown in certain story cutscenes and her C support with Byleth, where she reveals that she has a tragic backstory where her family was tortured and killed specifically to implant the Crest of Flames within her, and that she has a noble goal to eradicate the system that allowed for such a tragedy to happen to her and her family. Towards the end of White Clouds, Edelgard asks Byleth to accompany her to be the witness to her coronation, and in going with her, Byleth learns the primary drives of Edelgard's character, from her interactions with her dying father and Ferdinand's dad. Soon after, it's revealed that Edelgard is the Flame Emperor, and Byleth has to choose to support Edelgard or stand against her, transitioning into the war phase of the game. During the Crimson Flower route, the player can see Edelgard's character develop to become a more compassionate and understanding ruler, but she still retains some of her character flaws that she has in the other routes. In her final supports with her classmates, she begins to understand how to relate to and understand them, a result that only happens in the Crimson Flower route. She comes to understand that Hubert has the right to withhold certain secrets from her, showing her growth beyond her control issues. She comes to appreciate Ferdinand more by coming to genuinely appreciate his worldview, even if she still thinks he's a bit cheesy. She grows to understand that Caspar doesn't view the world in the same way that she does, and they come to reach a mutual understanding of one another. She adapts the Imperial system to suit Linhardt's needs, so that he can thrive in a properly studious environment. And finally, she learns to be more patient with Bernadetta after working to understand her neuroticism and how to live with it. Edelgard notes this difference in her demeanor to Byleth during her B support, acknowledging,
If I were alone, I might have lost perspective and become a harsh leader with a heart of ice. But I'm
But
not.
for all of her growth in the Crimson Flower route, Edelgard is still haunted by the abuse and manipulation that she suffered from.
Those who slither in the dark.
The Agarthans are proud of their creation in Edelgard, with Thales noting that
You are our greatest creation. We use the defiled beast's blood as the fuel to your flame, that you may burn even the gods.
they most likely put her through such horrible conditions so that she would feel the need to destroy that which she thought caused such suffering. By manipulating the nobles of the Empire into being complicit in their plan, they placed the blame on the nobility and the crest system that would manipulate Edelgard into blaming the church for her and her family's suffering. Throughout the entirety of the Crimson Flower route, the player can clearly see that Edelgard hates the Agarthans, but she still ends up fulfilling the roles that they expect her to fill. Even when she tries to strike out against them in her invasion of Arianrode to kill Cornelia, upon Cornelia's death, she notes that
Aha, all is in accordance with this carefully crafted script of ours. What a masterpiece! What a delightful dance!
when she kills Dimitri, Edelgard seems aware that the Agarthans used the tragedy of Duscur to manipulate him to become an ineffective king because of his trauma. Yet, she doesn't realize that they've done the exact same thing to her. Ultimately, Edelgard has been painstakingly created by the Agarthans to create the conqueror that she would become, so that they could see through the destruction of the church, and so that they could most likely defeat Edelgard after the war, to reclaim Fodlan. Even though the Agarthans created Edelgard specifically to destroy the church and Rhea, Edelgard holds a lot of shocking similarities to Rhea, especially in her methodology. Rhea created the church in response to seeing her whole race massacred, and after she defeated the humans who did it. To keep the memory of her mother honored, she created a series of lies to perpetuate a system that would revere her lost people, and to keep humans believing in the power and benevolence of Sothis. Edelgard does much the same, deciding to create her new empire after seeing her brothers and sisters tortured because of crests, and she decides to destroy the church that supposedly created them. In the creation of her new empire, Edelgard spreads misinformation to justify her war against the church and the reconquest of Fodlan. She used misinformation in her declaration of war against the church to make the church seem more manipulative and evil than they actually are. Edelgard and Rhea also share personality traits of arrogance and obstinance in the service of their ambitions. Edelgard also hypocritically criticizes Rhea's methods, saying that,
There really is no depth you wouldn't sink to.
but Edelgard shares Rhea's view that they must win by any means necessary. Before the final battle in Crimson Flower, Rhea orders her army to burn the capital to increase their odds of winning, declaring that she
shall sacrifice as many lives as it takes.
And Edelgard says something all too similar after Lord Lenato's rebellion all the way back in White Clouds, declaring that
Really, I'm just like Lenato. I, too, will be the sort of ruler who's willing to risk the lives of my citizens in service of a higher cause. It's not possible to change the world without sacrifice. Dying for the greater good is not a death in vain.
And you can see this sentiment in action when she works with the organization that tortures, kills, and manipulates all of Fodlan, and she turns her own soldiers into demonic beasts to win the war at any cost. Edelgard also likes to separate herself from Rhea by claiming that they are breaking the cycle of the strong oppressing the weak, but all she does in actuality is perpetuate it. Dimitri points this out in the Blue Lions route, where he asks,
And do you intend to become a goddess yourself? Will you steal the power to take action from the broken-hearted masses you claim to defend?
Edelgard doesn't have the self-awareness to realize that her attitude and behaviors are almost identical to the very person that she despises, and that in destroying the Archbishop, she becomes an identical figure to Rhea. Edelgard's largest flaw is her lack of self-awareness, and I think that her failure to not closely examine herself and her worldviews is what leads her to become a tragic villain. Dimitri's entire character arc is centered around examining himself and his decisions and choosing to change his objective of revenge when he realizes how fruitless it is. Claude is always working to understand Fodlan and the root causes of its struggles so that he can better adapt to being there. Edelgard, however, remains consistent in her worldview and refuses to doubt it because she can't. The destruction of the church and the crest system has been all that she lived for since she had been tortured, and it seems to be the only thing that kept driving her forward. She directly states this in a discussion with Hubert during White Clouds.
I regret My grief, my whole life. I've thrown it all away into the darkness.
Edelgard will stop at nothing to see her will through, and this headstrong attitude is what leads her to commit aggressive and destructive acts in the name of creating her new just world. A lot of people in the community give Dimitri grief for fixating on Edelgard and blaming her for the tragedy of Duscur when she had nothing to do with that. But Edelgard is to Rhea what Dimitri is to Edelgard. In reality, Edelgard blames Rhea for things that she hasn't intended and isn't directly responsible for, and views her rule as incompatible with the meritocratic future because of what she did. Rhea had a flawed system of lies, but it was made in good faith, and everything she did was to continue her reign, and the crest system was a byproduct of her rule, not the primary goal. It seems that Edelgard will have similar problems to Rhea perpetuating her new empire, but she won't be able to shepherd those lies and to protect her system in the same way that Rhea did, because the virgin Edelgard is mortal, unlike the Chad Rhea. Edelgard is a complex character that is difficult to wholly understand from just one playthrough of the game, but through seeing her character through multiple different perspectives, anyone can see that Edelgard is a tragic character because of her victimization by the Agarthans that manipulates her into starting an avoidable bloody war. Edelgard stresses how she'll reach out her hand to Byleth to soar away into a bright future together, but it seems like she should have reached out her hand to receive some help, to be led out of the darkness that enveloped her whole life. Hey, all 4 of you that made it here, thank you for watching, and I hope that you enjoyed it. Let me know what you thought in the comments, and feel free to leave any suggestions for any other characters you want me to analyze, or even like larger topics in Three Houses that you'd like me to talk about. There's a lot to go into in this game, so, I'm happy to talk about anything you guys suggest. Well, thank you for watching, and until next time.